According to statistics from international organizations, approximately 200,000 people worldwide died due to wars in 2023, and this figure exceeded 230,000 in 2024, likely an underestimate. Casualty data released by both Russia and Ukraine is completely opaque, and the actual number of deaths may be far higher than official figures. Even so, 2023 and 2024 remain the deadliest years due to conflicts since the end of the Cold War. These are never cold numbers, but living, breathing lives. Is such a world truly peaceful? The two most concerning conflict zones globally today are one in Europe and the other in the Middle East. The Ukrainian battlefield has long descended into a war of attrition, and the number of soldier deaths, regardless of which side's account you refer to, is suffocating. After fighting for so long, there is no clear winner or loser. Even the purpose of the war has become blurred. Industrial facilities have been destroyed, national finances are on the brink of collapse, and energy supply chains have been completely disrupted. The other war is raging in Gaza. By the summer of 2025, the death toll from the Israel-Palestine conflict had surpassed 60,000, with a heartbreakingly high proportion being women and children. Hospitals, schools, and water supply systems in the region have been nearly completely destroyed, and every explosion serves as a warning to the world. Peace, ultimately, must be safeguarded by strength. Hence, that time-honored saying resonates more profoundly than ever. We do not live in a peaceful era, but in a strong and peaceful country. Why has the world fallen into such a state? War has always been a continuation of politics and spillover of risks and a redistribution of resources and right to survival. It never erupts suddenly, but rather results from the cascading effects of economic pressure, social division, political imbalance, and military adventurism, which eventually cross a breaking point. On the eve of World War I, Britain and France monopolized 70% of the world's colonies, while the emerging Germany was denied any share of the spoils. The severe imbalance between power and interest distribution led to a violent collision between the old and new world orders, triggering war. The cause of World War II was even more distinct. Germany struggled under war reparations and hyperinflation, and poverty was widespread globally. In this context, public opinion shifted sharply to the right, and people were more inclined to elect leaders with a tough foreign policy. Thus, that failed art student stepped onto the historical stage, and with the sound of gunfire, everything was reduced to zero. It is no exaggeration to say that the current situation is not fundamentally different from the eve of World War I and II. It is even more complex and dangerous. The global economic inequality is far more severe than in those years, with the rich getting richer and the poorer poorer. Critical resources such as energy, food, rare earths, and technology are firmly controlled by a handful of major powers. Trade wars, tariff wars, and financial wars are incessant, while technological blockades, supply chain decoupling, and bloc confrontations emerge one after another. Worse still, this is not a conflict between two or three empires, but a comprehensive split of the global system. The US dollar hegemony is shifting eastward, the energy system is undergoing rapid restructuring, developing countries in the global south are awakening, and capital and power are realigning. Every region harbors a fuse. Gunfire continues in Eastern Europe, missiles fly freely in the Middle East, and tensions simmer along the India-Pakistan border, on the Korean Peninsula, in the Red Sea, in the South China Sea, and across the African continent. In fact, the smell of gunpowder has long permeated the globe. All it takes is a single bang to ignite a full-scale conflict. But why hasn't World War III erupted yet? There are two core reasons. First, major powers have gained wisdom. After World War II, the world's major powers recognized a crucial truth. War does not necessarily bring victory. More often than not, it results in mutual destruction. Especially the side that strikes first, firing the opening shot, usually bleeds first, collapses first, and gets mired in a quagmire first. History has proven this. Germany struck first in World War I and was ultimately ganged up on. It took the lead again in World War II, only to be reduced to ruins. These lessons are etched in the minds of all nations. War today comes at an astronomical cost, not just financial, but comprehensive. Once war breaks out, oil prices soar, exchange rates fluctuate wildly, stock markets crash, public morale collapses, and even allies scatter like birds and beasts. Therefore, major powers like China and the US are extremely rational. In today's era, competition is not about guns and cannons, but about algorithms, energy, technology, and supply chains. Whoever can stay stable and hold on the longest is the true winner. Every country is calculating this cost, and no one wants to be the first to play with fire if they can avoid it. Second, nuclear weapons have created a balance of terror. Please abandon the naive notion that nuclear weapons can solve everything. Nuclear weapons are never meant to wage war, but to prevent it. That is basic common sense. If you dare to attack first, I dare to ensure mutual destruction. Precisely because every major power possesses this ultimate insurance policy, the planet has avoided a global war despite the thickening smell of gunpowder. Thus, while nuclear weapons are a cruel invention, they also embody humanity's most helpless wisdom, upholding a fragile peace through a balance of terror. But this does not mean war is far from us. Today's human society, though seemingly peaceful, is actually afflicted with the same ills as before World War I and II. Unequal resource distribution, technological bottlenecks, and constant trade frictions. On the surface, there are no gunshots, but the shadow of conflict has long loomed. For decades, the United States has occupied the dominant position on the world stage, enjoying the largest share of the spoils. Now, as China rises, it also seeks a seat at the table. The United States talks of fair competition, but when it sees China's growing strength, it begins to change the rules and upend the table. When you develop chips, it blocks equipment. When you manufacture cars, it imposes tariffs. When you explore space, it sanctions components. It preaches cooperation while holding a knife behind its back. Essentially, it fears losing its monopoly and the day when it can no longer dictate what China can and cannot do. But young people in China do not want to spend their lives in low-end manufacturing. China also aspires to higher-end industries, broader markets, and an independent technological system. Is there anything wrong with these aspirations? No. Who does not yearn for a better life? The problem is that the United States does not want China to live such a life. Those established hegemons that have long enjoyed privileges, acting as both referees and players, naturally resent the rise of a challenger. Hence, technology wars, energy wars, tariff wars, public opinion wars, and cyber wars have erupted on all fronts. From the oceans to outer space, from chips to data, all parties are locked in intense rivalry and mutual restraint. On the surface, they still argue with reason, but behind closed doors, they are already preparing for battle. At this point, if you ask whether World War III will come, my answer is, you may not see flying bullets or roaring cannons and think World War III has not arrived, but it has already begun. Just in a different form. In the game between China and the US, chips are guns, exchange rates are cannons, and shipping, energy, technology, and standards are all battlefields. It has no smoke or casualties, yet it is reshaping the world order just the same. Never assume this silent war is safer. On the contrary, it is far more dangerous. When financial and technological wars reach their limits, who can guarantee that no politician will take a desperate gamble? History is replete with such examples. If that German art student had not failed his exams, World War II might never have happened. In 2001, the 9/11 attacks perpetrated by Osama bin Laden and his organization led the United States to entangle itself in Afghanistan and Iraq for 20 years, displacing millions of civilians and wasting trillions of US dollars. Wars in this world often require only one person's emergence and one person's paranoid ambition to stir up economic crises, national hatreds, and personal desires into a prolonged, blood-soaked catastrophe, ultimately forcing the entire world to rebuild from ruins. This suffices to show that what truly ignites the world is never guns and cannons, but the greed and fear in human hearts. So stop asking if World War III will come. It may already be on its way, or it may have already begun. There are no tank charges, but there are supply cuts, inflation, sanctions, and blockades. There are no roaring cannons, but there are data blackouts, ship interceptions, and satellite hacks. This is the war of the new era, silent and smokeless, yet far more dangerous.